2, 1. Hello, everybody. It is your host, KG82 Live, aka Tighten Up Your Pussy, aka your defending YarskCap champion. I am here with my co-host, the new proud member of Brokeback Mountain, Jacob Biltino. Bilt, how are we feeling today, cowboy?
I'm feeling pretty good. I went with the Texas theme tonight since we're having Ross on. Trying to just have theme night every time I'm on here rather than just the regular old Jake Built stuff. So I'm doing well. How about you over there, Ross? How you doing?
I'm doing good. Happy to be joining you guys tonight.
I know we pulled it all together last second, Ross, but you know what? We might as well start with the one thing that we know everyone's going to ask you about. Your injuries have been absolutely horrible. Is this just medical karma for you being a doctor and trying to talk shit about all of your friends during their physicals, or what the hell is coming back to you now?
I feel like every time I've ever gotten brought on in the past, it was always to get asked questions about like fucking Saquon's injuries and big name people. And what do you know? I'm on again talking about all the various injuries of, unfortunately, my players this time. So not as exciting for me.
I know. I mean, what is there one in particular that's worrying you more the most? Because the one eyeballing quote that I saw was DeAndre Swift finally played last week, looked pretty good. I think he had 6 carries, but then afterward, his coach said, "You know what? I think we gave him one too many carries." And it's just like, oh, Jesus, that can't be a good sign. If he's only getting 6 carries and the coach is saying that's one too much.
Yeah, it's funny that so DeAndre Swift goes down. I worked my tail off to get Jamal. Finally get Jamal, and it's the worst games he's had all year. And Swift comes back. Jamal has a standout game again. So really, in the future, I'm looking at potentially just continuously running both of them, especially in the short term with all my other injured running backs. They seem to score better when they're both on the field. So maybe it's a win-win, but I doubt it.
That was one thing I kind of brought up. I don't know how it was last time or 2 times ago. Like with all of your injuries at running back, I was like, Ross might just have to start both of the Detroit Lions running backs some week, which last week might have benefited you a little bit.
Yeah.
And it's not completely unprecedented. There was a time where Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara were running backs together in New Orleans, and they were both ended up the season as top 10 running backs. So long as Swift gets all the receiving work and Jamal Williams gets all the goal line work, he'll be good.
Yeah, the nice part is they're both averaging 14.7 points per game. So, I mean, that's borderline RB1.
Correct, yeah.
Score. So, and if I play both of them, I mean, Detroit rarely throws in the end zone. So at least I'm getting all the goal line touches.
And they just got rid of Hawkinson. So
yeah,
that's even
less to throw too. Yeah.
Did you see today though? Schefter tweeted, and I thought I saw this. Swift didn't practice today due to an ankle and shoulder injury. Yeah. Which honestly might be better for you because then just to start Jamal Williams rather than take a wild guess on which one to start. So
yeah, and it's hard to know if they're just resting him or not. Yeah. We'll see. But
so Ross, I have a general question for you. I know like sometimes you like to poke and you like to kind of be active on the trade market, but with the team so injured, like how do you kind of go about that? I mean, I know we completed maybe the most irrelevant trade a couple of weeks ago when you trade away shitty Najee Harris for Mike Williams, who got hurt one game later, and then a running back for Denver who you've already dropped. So what are your general thoughts? Do you try to poke around other teams, or are you just kind of stuck in limbo with dog shit right now?
Earlier in the season, I was looking at other teams. I don't know. I mean, all I have to trade at this point is essentially injured players. And I don't know how big of a market there is out there for injured players that are on IR, not even just questionable, but they're on IR. So, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily be interested in a player that I can't play for 4 weeks. So I have not, haven't gotten into people's DMs much, and I don't think people are looking to me for some hot trades very often.
There was one podcast I was like listening to. It was like yesterday, I think, And a guy like Marquise Brown, like right now for you, he's not worth anything. But for like a guy like Kirby or myself or Jared, who are like, we should be in the playoffs. It's like shit. If we get a receiver like that back at playoff time, they're actually talking about Jamar Chase. So Pooty, like if you see any trades coming down the line for me for Jamar Chase, it's because of this. But it's one of those deals where right now there's no value for you, and we really don't need the value right now because we want it for the playoff time. So like that's the value I could see in it, which kind of talked about like Cordero. At least he's practicing again, and I don't know when they have to activate him by. There's a certain day of the week they have to activate him if he's going to be able to play this weekend. But he's practicing today at least.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of in the similar mindset to you guys in that respect, because if I can hold on to my star players,
Yep,
and just, I mean, I'll probably end up in the Sacco playoffs. But if I have those players playing in the playoffs, there's no way I lose. I mean, I could.
Not have
If Kyler plays like he did, I could lose.
Did you see how Josh and Kyler scored last week?
Yeah,
They're both
that's fair. That is fair.
So that's the thing. It's all love and war. So that was going to be my follow-up. Are you willing to trade, let's say, a player like Marquise Brown for someone that's willing to help you now to try and make the playoffs? Or are you more so trying to just ride out the injured players and then it's like, you know what, if I make the Sacco, at least I have Brown to try to bail me out. So are you making the push for the playoffs now or just trying to conserve for the best team at the end of the year?
I think I'm close enough to the Sacco playoffs that I would consider a trade, but the trade would have to, I understand it can't be like apples for apples because it's an IR player, but I can't be taking a big hit.
No, yeah.
In points.
Yep, it's always a tough threshold. I know, especially when you're right on that precipice. I know there was one year I think I was like 2-6, and it was like yard sale. Let's sell everybody. But all you need is one small little run. I went on to win 4 of my last 5 and make the last playoff spot, and so there's always opportunity out there. So right now you're just 1 game back, and that's plenty of room for you to potentially work with it. And like Bill said, there's going to be a loser of those 2 matchups. So if you win this week, you're in the last playoff spot already.
But that's irrelevant. I was sending irrelevant information that day and getting yelled at. So
okay,
one thing I was gonna say too is I blame you for J.K. Dobbins getting hurt. Because like the week before he got hurt, I texted Ross. I was like, "Hey, do you have any interest for like J.K. Dobbins?" And I forget who else for Mike Williams. And Ross was like, no, probably not. And that was when J.K. was healthy. And then like the next week he got hurt. So, I mean, I don't know if it's just because I talked to Ross about J.K. Dobbins where he got hurt, but I'm going to blame it on you. And yeah, speaking of that, I got rid of him today for Deion Jackson, and Jared was not happy about it.
Oh, yeah. Do you want to go ahead and spill that whole story about what he's all doing?
Yeah, so today I picked up Deion Jackson, which I figured that you would have already picked him up, Kirby.
Oh, no, I don't have any players worthy of dropping. My team's too loaded.
Once I saw that news, that Jonathan Taylor didn't practice today, I went and picked him up quick, and Jared goes, "Why do you need Deion Jackson? That's a waste of a roster spot." And I told him, I was like, "Well, Jonathan Taylor didn't practice, and Dobbins and I are on IR, so that's really actually wasting a roster spot." And he's like, "Well, you're not going to start him, so you might as well drop him so I can have him." So I think Jared was trying to pull one on me there where he's like, "I don't really want him, but if you want to trade, like I'm not going to give you much for him." And it's like, no, like I know what you're doing here. So Jared really wanted Deion, and then I was hoping to get more of a rise out of him when I text that Twitter thing to the group chat, but he held pretty strong on not giving in to my trolling. So
Ross, one question while we're talking about Jared, you have been known on this podcast to give like a point of warning to Jared. It's like, Jared, stop doing trades. Don't do it. They're all trying to take advantage of you. So far, Jared's done 2 deals this year, and I don't think they've worked out horribly. First one giving away Mark Andrews for Zach Ertz and Jalen Waddle, and some people said he got fleeced, but Waddle's been a top 10 wide receiver, and Ertz has been a top 5 tight end. And then the other deal, he got Travis Etienne deal away Thielen and Hunts. And now Etienne's been a top 10 running back since he traded for him. So is it time to give Jared his flowers, or are you now warning him like, don't get too happy with yourself? Don't be making the wrong deal because it's coming.
Yeah, I think, and I don't know the stats on this, but if you would look at other years, by this point, Jared probably would have made 2 trades within a week to Zach, at least. So if he can stay at this slower rate of trade, maybe that's the answer, because he's having a great season so far.
I think the one year he was like 5-0, and then within 2 or 3 weeks after that, he only had like 2 guys left from his original draft, and it's like, what the hell did you just do, Jared? You were 5-0. But I'll give him credit. Was it 2 weeks ago when? Yeah, it was 2 weeks ago when we were talking about, what team that was 4-2 is going to miss the playoffs, and why is it Jared? And he proved us wrong, and he's won 2 in a row. And like this week, he has Luddy, who's obviously coming off a hot match, but he proved us wrong. He's done good trades, and Mark Andrews has been hurt a little bit here too, hasn't he, Kurt?
Yeah, just this last week, and the week before he had a little bit of stinger. So it's worked out well for Jared. He's
6-2. He's doing well. He also said in those texts today, he's like, I think you're just scared of me. I'm like, well, you're the one that texted me first about Deion Jackson, so I think you're the scared one here. Plus, I have the tiebreaker over him right now, so.
Yeah. All because of that missed field goal. But let's jump into first. Let's end it with Ross. You got anything that you want to say to the group? Somebody you want to call out, or anything that you're worried about for the rest of the year, or are you pretty much just putting a Band-Aid over that shithole you call a team and calling it good?
I mean, there's no one I'm really worried about this year other than myself. I feel like if the year ends badly enough to me have that ball sack on my wall, it was going to be my own team's doing, not anything anybody did to me.
Do you have a spot picked out? Is that something that you put in in your office at the hospital, or? I mean, I think right behind your shoulder right there on the wall, I think it's perfect. I think it would be a great backdrop for your Zoom calls or whatever.
And be like, turn and cough, you give an example, you hold the nutsack trophy, be like, see, so then the guy turns and coughs, and maybe be a bad prop.
Maybe I'll use it for when I'm doing vasectomy consults. That would be a good demonstration, actually.
Amen to that. Amen. Well, hey, you know what's still a long way to go. All it takes is, I think the threshold every single year is if you can get to 7 wins, usually, maybe 6, then you're at least getting a tie for the last playoff spot. So you just got to scratch and claw for 4 more wins over these last couple of weeks, maybe 3, and you might have a shot at it. So that's the end goal right there.
Yeah, that's what I'm shooting for.
We still have 6 weeks left, so a lot can happen.
Amen to that. Amen to that. But with that, Bill Tino, do we want to kind of jump into last week's matchups and dig into the other parts that we usually jump into?
Yeah, that works for me. So I guess we'll start with Ross's since he's on here. He had Joel. And why is it not loading now? But, I mean, Joel ended up winning. Joel had a pretty solid week for, the last week. Did he lose to Josh the week before? No, I forget who he lost the week before, but Joel had a couple down weeks there, but he bounced back. And Ross, your team played decent. Gus Edwards not scoring many, and then
not scoring 100 sucks.
Yeah, but George Pickens giving you a goose egg sucked. I mean,
yeah,
and who knows if he's going to get more now that Claypool's gone. But I'll kind of let you touch on that match and what was going through your head.
I actually talked to Curb about this beforehand. I think it was about this. Deontay Johnson versus George Pickens. And Johnson is a more stable player, but I knew I needed points. So it was either crash and burn or get the end zone targets. And unfortunately, I crashed and burned.
Yeah.
If I could have switched him out with Jamal Williams by moving Paris Campbell from my flex up into wide receiver, that's a 21-point swing right there.
And then you end up losing by less than 2 points. So that would actually be worse. That would be.
Yep.
Nope, that was a good matchup, and it was a close one. I knew that was an important one because it was your jump. It was almost going to get you to 4-4 and get you a tie for that last playoff spot. But like we said, still plenty of time on there. But
And
after
then
that, I was
and
going
the one thing I do want to say about this matchup quick is Joel making the quarterback change to Tua, and then the team name change, which
team name is bold.
I'm kind of with Jared on this one. Like, I mean, that's way too close to Jared's team name. But at the same time, I mean, Dak didn't have a bad week. Dak had 25 last week. So as a Cowboys fan, I don't know if I like him changing his team name, but I mean, it's midseason, and if he thinks that's what's going to bolster his roster to make him in the playoffs by changing his name, that's fine.
May the record show I am Jared's team. That having two teams as two a time is just way too confusing.
Okay, I'm not gonna lie. So what was it, Tuesday morning? Something like that. I was at the gym and I always look at the waivers
Humble brag.
that morning so I can get like the first looks.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I wonder what the projection is of everybody's standings. So I pull it up and I was like, where the fuck's Joel? I was like, Joel just beat me and he's not anywhere in the standings. I probably went through the standings for 4 minutes. 4 fucking minutes. And I'm like, Dak Life Matter is not in here. It doesn't make sense. And then I fucking found out he changed his name. I'm like, oh shit.
Freaking playing possum. That's playing chess right there. No one's worried about you if you just hit your team every week and no one knows what look out for you.
That was a sly move.
What do you got next on the radar, Bill Tino?
We'll go to my match and let's go across the top now on my computer screen. Yeah, so my matchup with Pooty, it was a big matchup between 2-5-2 teams. I kind of told Pooty, him and I texted on the side quite a bit, and I told him I was like, this is a big one for playoff movement. Pooty's the typical like I'm not going to respond in the group chat, but I'm going to text everybody on the side, which is basically a group chat. So yeah, big matchup of 5-2. Joe Burrow finally had a shit week, but it didn't matter because Tony Pollard went absolutely off. That was the biggest thing for me. Justin Jefferson and Stephon Diggs kind of did what they usually do. Chubb had a pretty good week, but I mean, 147. I was 4 points away from top scorer. Like, that happens for me. Pooty, Josh Jacobs didn't score for him like he usually does. Devontae and Chris Olave didn't do much. I think Higbee got an injury mid-game, but yeah, and I mean, Pooty's highest score was almost his kicker with 17 points. Tom Brady edged him out with 17.1, but I got lucky. I dodged a bullet. Jamar Chase didn't play, which that was a random injury.
Yeah, that was out of nowhere. And Josh Jacobs, he's very game script dependent, where he's very good in games Raiders win, but if they lose, he typically doesn't perform very well. So
and that's another thing for Pooty is, I mean, he's still sitting pretty good, but not having Jamar Chase for these next 4 to 6 weeks, which Ross, you're the doctor here. Are some humans just different? Because the Bengals seem to think this 6-week injury, for most people, they're like, Jamar Chase will be back in 3. Like, people just heal faster.
What was it that he injured?
It's like some sort of hip bone deal.
How about while you research Jamar Chase's injury, we'll touch base on the ass kicking I gave Sap.
Yep, that works. I'll look it up.
Well, me, Sap, I just beat you. That's it. It's next game. It wasn't that close. So, what's the next one? Oh, Jared, good job beating Schultes. I mean, the one thing that's would potentially woke a sleeping giant for Schultes is Christian McCaffrey going off for 36. I mean, Schultes got 100 points with Josh Allen only scoring like 17. So if Christian McCaffrey keeps going off in that 49ers team, like potentially that could be bad news for the rest of the league. That's dangerous.
Kyle Shanahan, he loves using running backs. So, like, that's insane that Christian McCaffrey's for them now. I mean, he's the first guy to have like what they call the triple crown or whatever.
Since
LT. Scores, the passing touchdown receiving since LT, which was in like 2005 or something. So, yeah, Schultes definitely got a huge upgrade there by him going to San Francisco instead of Carolina, but maybe he didn't.
But the one thing we got to make sure we give credit on is Jared's team was very consistent. I mean, His lowest scorer was Jonathan Taylor, who so far has been a pretty big bust. But outside of that, his next lowest score for position players was 11 points. I mean, Aaron Jones had a good game. McLaurin looked a lot better with the quarterback change, and ETN looks great. And Ertz is consistently giving him a floor of 10 points, which out of a tight end is huge. So it's out of the starters, it's a fairly solid team. And I mean, he pulled off a win during Patrick Mahomes' bye week, which is hard to do. So kudos to Jared's squad, and I'll be curious to see where he falls in the power rankings. He may crack that top 3, I feel like, but we'll see.
Yeah, so quick update there. So I found an article that says Jamar Chase's injury is similar to the one that ended Bo Jackson's career, which that's probably just a headline grab, so I doubt that's actually true.
So
but
what
so
the injury?
Let's hear what Ross has to say, Mr. Cowboy.
ESPN reported it was a hairline fracture and possible torn labrum.
That's what I saw too.
So, do people just heal faster? I feel like, I mean, obviously he's one of the best athletes on the planet.
So I'm not really sure because I'm seeing also reports that they're expecting him to be out 4 to 6 weeks. So like, why not put him on IR?
Well, but that's why they're not, because they expect him to heal faster. So this injury that he has is usually 4 to 6 weeks, but the Bengals just think he's going to heal faster.
Well, the thing is, there's also those timelines I feel like are very subjective to all those things. Like people that tear ACLs, they say they're out for 9 months. People tear their Achilles, they say they're out for a minimum 10 months before they gain that mobility back. And James Robinson came back in a period of 7 months, as opposed to some people it's a career ender. So I feel like every single body is definitely subjective and heals at a different pace. I mean, that's just been proven throughout history. I mean, I've never been able to get through some of my injuries that I've withstood, and that's why my football career isn't the same, but we'll worry about that later.
Yeah, I'm still on a 20-year IR at the moment, so.
Yeah, but with that in mind, the last matchup, and I feel like we had to save this for last, was Buddy getting his first win, finally avoiding that infamous 0-for-16 season. And he does it dropping 151. So welcome to the fold, Alvin Kamara dropping 3 tutties for him.
Yeah, that was like he finally came back to life. I mean, he was kind of dead there for a while, and he figured it out this week. And like I said, all year, I know Kyler's team has sucked, and he told me to shut up that one week. I told him I like his team. His team showed up this week, and it was 151 points with 9 points from his quarterback. That's what's crazy. I mean, he could have went off for 170 pretty easily.
So we'll see what the future has for him, but without being that out, Max dropped.
He put up 138. Josh had a great week. He just happened to be playing the highest score in the league.
Yeah, and what's crazy is 138 a lot of times gets you the most points. This week it still wasn't even top 3 for points scored. So a lot of high scoring for across the league. But Axe last week did a trade of getting Deontay Foreman and Cortland Sutton, and Sutton dropped a stinker, but Foreman dropped almost 32 for him. So while Debo was out that week. So kudos to Axe, at least for 1 week, looking good.
Is Josh the new Jared? Trading for his favorite players, drafting his favorite players from his favorite team?
I mean, he's traded for one. I would say the reason he's potentially the new Jared, I think it's been back-to-back years that Axe has started the year 0-5 at least. So,
and I mean, like, he drafted Russell Wilson. Then he had their backup tight end on his roster for like 3 weeks.
And he also drafted Javonte Williams.
What's that?
Yeah, Javonte Williams, but he tore his ACL, so he had another Bronco.
So that's why it's not a bad thing. Like, the Broncos were supposed to be a good team this year, but like, I don't know. I like even Justin Jefferson, for me, I hated drafting him because I'm like, God, if he sucks, I'm gonna hate myself so much.
Oh yeah, I hate drafting my players when they're my favorite players on my favorite teams and they're really fucking good at football. That's just the worst. I hated it last year drafting Derrick Henry and he dropped 30 points a game.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, I don't necessarily think he was the Jared, because everyone was very high on the Broncos offense going this year. And when have we ever been high on the Dolphins going into the year?
I know. I just need to ask because Jared used to draft a ton of Dolphins when they were bad. So just had to ask.
Yep. So I don't think he's quite crossed that threshold. And you know what? Good for Kyler. Good for Josh. They officially both have 1 win this year, which is what their goal is on the outset. So now they just need to focus on winning one of those last 2 weeks because I don't think the playoffs are in their cards. But with that in mind, I guess let's just jump forward. Or no, let's do the power rankings, I guess. Let's see where you go from there before we touch base on the next week's matchups. That works for you, Beltino.
Yep, just 1 second here. I'm finishing them up right now.
Oh,
So I didn't really prep like I did last week. I only have 3 guys left to go, so we're good.
we're golden.
Actually, we can go through. I'll talk my first. What do you want to do? First 4 again.
Bottom 4 first.
All right, bottom 4 first. With the bottom
You had
matchups,
Ross at the number 10 spot last year. Ross, I mean, do you want to give any thoughts to that first on how bullshit that was?
I mean, I think that week I was the 10 spot, but I don't support the decision of calling me the 10 spot for the season.
well, it was more just moving forward. It wasn't.
Yeah,
Because
even then, I mean,
I don't know how your
like
injuries are now.
3
So
starters on the bench with injuries. I don't know.
All right, Bill. So let's see you put Ross number 10 again and say it to his face. Come on.
it's not. Nope, it's not.
Pussy.
And I didn't know Ross was coming on until last second. So number 10 is Axman, even though he scored 138. 1-7. He's got some injuries. He scored 138, but I mean he's 1-7 and just I mean Donta Foreman or whatever. How often is he going to score 30 points in the game and get 3 touchdowns? I don't think it's going to happen a ton. So I have him there. Then I have Ross. Still just the injuries. He put up 91 again. Couple weeks. He put up 50 the week before. So that's just more of a what have you done lately? Then I have Kyler. More the 1-7 thing again. I've always liked his team, so I've always kind of wanted him put a little higher than where he might have should have been. And then at 7, I have Joel. Thoughts?
Got you. Ross, do you have any thoughts on that bottom 4 tier that they have right there?
I think the teams are right. I think the order is close. One stat that I like to look at is points for, like essentially average points throughout the weeks. Which is difficult because, I mean, injuries and who you're playing and trades and all that stuff. But if you go by points for, it goes Josh, Kyler, Joel, then me.
Yep.
I think I agree. Kyler has a strong team. It's just whether they put it together or not. I think Joel also, I think he's probably trending in a better direction. So, but I think I'll also start to trend in a better direction over the next 2 to 3 weeks. So it's hard to say.
Yeah, I mean, next week, if you score 130, you have a chance to be like right up at 7 or 6. But like right now, you're off a week of where Kyler has scored more in 1 week than you did in 2. So that's more where I was basing it off of.
That's fair.
Yep. I think, yeah, it's close. I mean, I personally you have to put Axe and Luddy given their records bottom 2. And I'm kind of with you, Bill. I like Luddy's team more, so I'll always put him ahead of Axe, at least for now.
Yeah.
And then,
well, and the other thing is too, so like if you look at Ross's, like you said, the points for, you're sitting there at 791, and then Axe is at 758, Kyler's at 760, and they just went off for 151 and 138. So like your team overall, when healthy, is definitely better. But like right now, you just have no one healthy. So that's where your issue's at. But
the one
that can all change quick. I mean, if Cordero's back, like your receivers are pretty solid on the other side. So that's just kind of where I put you. But doesn't really matter. You're not 10. That's all that matters, right?
Bullshit. It matters to be in the top 6. But go ahead. What do you got for 6 through the 4 slot?
6 through 4, I have Sap, Cootie, JLS, or Schultes.
Any
So on this
rationale
one,
behind that?
what's that?
Go ahead. Any rationale behind your reasoning? I
Right.
mean, that's a big fall for Sap. I mean, from last week, obviously.
his team's falling apart a little bit. He's still number 3 in the points for, but like the Raiders offense looks terrible. So like Devontae Adams, I mean, obviously he's still going to get quite a few points this week. He only got like 2 or whatever, 0 maybe. Like Tyreek Hill is his big dog. Lamar Jackson, I don't know if people are figuring him out more throughout the season here, but he hasn't been the stud. I mean, that's what carried Sapp those first how many weeks. And then, I mean, his running backs, Raheem Mostert and Brian Robinson, and then David Montgomery. He never plays Zeke even if he's healthy. So I think he has a bunch of okay running backs, 2 really good receivers and a good quarterback, and we'll see what Hawkinson does in Minnesota. But I put him there. He's on what is he? Couple game losing streak now.
Yeah, he started off pretty hot. I think he might have lost 3 in a row.
He's lost 3 in a row. He scored 99, 83, and 92. So right now he's just cold. He's got a solid team, but he's 4-4. Hootie's got a better record. And like we were talking earlier, I think Schultes having Christian McCaffrey. And then Schultes this week obviously had Josh Allen on bye, and Josh Allen is a game breaker.
Josh Allen played last week.
Yep, and I think now with Amon-Ra St. Brown, or Amon-Ra St. Brown, however you pronounce it, without Hawkinson, I think he's going to get a load of the targets. Mm-hmm. He's got Travis Kelce at tight end, so I think Schultes' team is loaded with star power.
Yep.
And that's why I have him at 4 and Pooty at 5.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty close between Pooty and Schultes. I thought Sapp was the clear number 6 just because his running backs have finally started to come back to earth.
Yep.
It's just hard with Edwards-Helaire is splitting carries. Zeke is splitting carries when he's healthy. And he thought he had a good deal with Montgomery and Herbert, just having a full handcuff. But now they're pretty much a 50-50 timeshare. So it's hard to choose which one's going to be the main guy for each given week. So,
well, and two, so like 2 weeks ago, I said Brian Robinson or whatever was a great pickup. And he was, but now they're going back to Gibson playing more. So, yeah, Sapp just has a lot of guys that are splitting carries, which makes it tough. And now Mostert, who knows what's going to happen with Jeff Wilson on the Dolphins, because Wilson played under McDaniel. So, I mean, Joel might have a good deal going on there with Jeff Wilson now. So, yeah, Sapp's running backs are going to be the question. But when you draft receivers, it's tough. I mean, I got lucky with mine getting, running backs that actually get all the bulk of the carries, but
the one thing I would like to say about Pootie's team is he seems to have a thing for NFL players that like to abuse women. And so I think he could look in the mirror with that, with Joe Mixon just beating up women. He has Deshaun Watson, who's sexually arousing Lord knows who kinds of women. And I have it on good authority earlier this year. He was contemplating a trade for Kareem Hunt and willing to trade away Josh Jacobs for him. So I'm just going to say, Taylor, you might have a problem. Time to look in the mirror and maybe reevaluate your morals here, because
he's probably trying to trade for Tyreek Hill too. Just get them all on the team.
Yeah, I mean, his team is a hard-hitting Joe Mixon, so it's very on brand. But good Lord, Pooty, try to be a little more clear. This is a big podcast, and so your work is eventually going to find out about this. So,
and it is very ironic that Beats by Ray, which is obviously another domestic abuse charge, is Sapp, who has Tyreek Hill. So, I mean, we have 2 guys that know what they like on their team, and that's talking character on them.
Hey, you know what? That is what it is. Roscoe, you got any thoughts about these 3, or do you want to jump into the top 3?
The only one I really have a thought on, and you guys kind of already touched on it, Sapp's team, his running back room right now is kind of a dumpster fire.
Yeah.
And so if you look at his average point total of his current starters, it's 104, which would really put him in like the bottom 4 to 5 teams.
Yep.
And all that I think about Lamar going down with an injury or Tyreek going down with an injury. Sapp is quickly running his way to the Sacco if one of those 2 go down. So
that's why, like, this week's matchup with him and Schultz is going to be big, even though I guess I shouldn't have sent that to the group, but whatever. We'll talk about that coming up.
No, but it makes perfect sense. But the one thing we've told Sapp, he was on this high horse when these first power rankings came out and everything. And unfortunately, it might just be a thing of routine where he starts off the season hot and cools down. So it'll come on him to try and turn it on these last couple weeks. But with that in mind, let's get to the top three, Bill Tino.
Jared, me, Kirby. Jared's team made a big jump from last week, and that mainly deals with the trades. Travis Etienne or whatever, however you pronounce it.
ETN.
At ETN, there you go. Damn it. I knew that too. Anyway, him getting the starting running back role now is huge. The biggest thing for Jared is, I mean, most of the time running backs bounce back. If Jared gets Jonathan Taylor going and he has ETN, Aaron Jones, Jonathan Taylor, then Waddle at receiver, and I mean, you can throw in, he had Terry McLaurin last week, which he's not what he used to be, but I mean, he's a solid receiver. Christian Kirk, then Zach Ertz, he's a top 5 tight end this year, and then Patrick Mahomes. Like, Jared's team is solid.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, that trade with Jacksonville, getting rid of James Robinson, made all the difference in the world for Jared's team, in my opinion. He scored like 18 and 23 the last 2 weeks since he's been the starter. So, yeah, I got Jared there. And then, I don't know, my team, for whatever reason, I mean, obviously my receivers get me, 14 points a week. This week, I had the decision to make if I was going to start Pollard in my flat. Well, the decision was easy once Zeke was ruled out, but I have a decision basically every week. Do I start Hopkins, Walker, or whoever else in my flex? So, I mean, my running backs are solid. Pierce is going to get the bulk carries. Walker's getting the bulk carries. I'm not stopping starting Chubb. Then I have Hopkins now, who is actually the highest average wide receiver in the NFL, I think. But obviously, he's only played 2 weeks, so that's whatever you want to call it, outlier. So if I can figure my tight end out, which Gesicki got me 11, and the 1 week I don't start Kyle Pitts, he got me 16 and a half. If I can figure out my tight end position, I really like where my team's at. So I got me at 2. And then Kirby, I mean, until you lose or have a bad week, you're going to be at the top of power rankings.
Yeah, I mean, I've had one loss, which obviously stung, but I mean, it is what it is. Not going to lose much sleep over it when my whole team has kind of been built on the Eagle stack of Jalen Hurts and AJ Brown. So when they were both on a bye, that was the 1 week I don't drop 100. And I think so long as those two are playing, I think I've averaged closer to 120 a week. So happy to know that those guys are back the rest of the year. And I'm also in a Bipocalypse this week. So I think Joel's got a good shot at beating me this week, but hopefully.
So to touch base on your team quick, Curb.
Yep.
I think what's huge for you is you've kind of had like a questionable flex every week. Well, I guess when you had Eckler, you could put Ramondre down there. But that trade that you got to get Debo, that was huge for you.
Yep, absolutely.
As long as he stays healthy, obviously. But
and so, yeah, initially my thought was to either kind of choose between Ramondre Stevenson or Cortland Sutton for that flex for a while. But I like the upside of Debo more, and so I was willing to trade Debo and that other running back for Carolina and trade away some of my depth to get a little bit of an upgrade at that receiver spot. So,
well, and fun fact about that trade for everyone that's listening, all 10 of us, I text Kirby right as Breece Hall got, well, not right at, like later in the day when Breece Hall was like ACL, and I knew he had running back depth because Kirby's been talking about that to me all year. And I said, I looked at Josh's team and I go, how fast is Deebo Samuel going to be on your team? And you're like, oh, I didn't even think about that. And then the very next day, Deebo Samuel was on your team. So,
hand to God, I honestly did not think about that until the very next day. Because usually I say no, trades don't happen on Monday. They start happening on Tuesday once all the Monday Night Football games are gone. But I've talked to Axe about Debo before, and then another trade happened prior to him getting in. I think it was a deal with Ross, actually, the Najee Harris deal, where I was trying to get Debo for Melvin Gordon and Mike Williams, but Josh didn't respond fast enough because Ross was quick to the trigger. So I've had my eye on Debo for a little bit and happy to get a deal done. Now I just need him to actually play in a freaking game. So we'll see what happens.
Ross, any thoughts on those final 3?
No, I think I would agree with those for the most part. I think you and Curb could be flip-flopped any week, but
Shut your
I
mouth.
think it's kind of a head-to-head at that point.
Well, with that in mind, before we kind of jump over, just a quick idea of what the Fantasy Pros site has for the rankings and see what they all have. So they gave my team a perfect 100, so I'm not mad about that. But looking at some of the other spots, they got Bill Tino at 85, Schultz sitting third with Jared at the fourth. And then Bill, we always say we like Kyler's team. He's actually ranked fifth here.
Yeah.
And so we're not the only ones that like him. After that, we got Sap at the 6, Pooty at the 7, which kind of surprised me. Joel at 8, Josh at 9, and then look who we got at the bottom, Mr. Ross Clucky.
That probably takes some injuries too, though.
I think it has to, yeah, because that's a little bit rough, but you know what? That's shows the current state of your team, Roscoe. So
Yep.
you can,
And just the drop from like 52 down to 41 is like that has to be injuries because like Ross, your team right now is bad, but it's not that bad when everyone's healthy. So
Yeah,
I know, but that's what we got for the rest of the season rankings. But for this week's rankings, who do they have? Bill Tino as the number 1 team to beat. So it looks like Bill Tino is looking solid this week and doesn't have as many buys as other teams.
Oh, and who is Bill Tino playing this week? Oh, yeah.
yeah, I kind of looked at the matchup because I knew we were going to talk about it, and yeah, it's projections don't matter, but
They
know. That's what we got for the final rankings there. But let's just go ahead and try to end it up really quick. We're talking about the next week's matchups as I try to figure out how to close out of this shit.
So yeah, so the first one is Ross and I. I'm projected to win 116 to 89. Ross has his defense and Deontay Johnson on bye. I have Chubb and Pollard on bye. Yeah, Ross is just your injuries. I mean, what's going to be huge for you is like I know they're probably resting DeAndre Swift, but like if he's like not playing, that's big for your team because Jamal Williams is going to come in. He can get you anywhere from 15 to 30 points. You got that Gus Edwards. That's just tough because he's splitting time. But yeah, all my guys are kind of just in their lineups. They're doing what they're doing. I'm starting Kyle Pitts this week, so expect him to get 2 points and me not start him next week and he'll get 16 again. Yeah, otherwise, I mean, who do you got on the bench that could play in your flex if DeAndre's out? Gerald Everett.
A tight end.
You could do the sap. You could do the sap super flex with the tight ends. But yeah, so I don't know what else do you got on it because I mean it just kind of is what it is.
I'm essentially just gonna need Taysom Hill to go off for 40.
Yeah, that's true. Need him quarterback back. Yeah.
Yeah.
Taysom Hill is the ultimate wild card in all of fantasy. He can.
I know that's why I've been playing him every
3 or 4 points, or he can have a week where he gets 24, 25 by a few rushing touchdowns. So it's the perfect boomer bust guy. If you're thinking, you're like, you know what, my team's not looking good this week. I need to throw a Hail Mary, and Taysom Hill. He's one of the best Hail Marys in fantasy football, so I definitely don't hate the idea of throwing him out there.
Well, and last week, he only had 7 points, but he got 10 carries. So, I mean, they're giving him the ball. So, if he just gets the end zone once or twice for you.
Yep. And he had a reception, and I think he threw for some yards. So, he's touching the ball.
So, yeah, it's pretty much the second coming of Christian McCaffrey by that logic. I mean, come on.
Pretty
much. He's just
that could be what keeps Ross
developing.
Amen to that. What do you got next on the docket, Bill Tino?
We'll go over to Jared and you, or not Jared. So, see, I saw 2 a time. We've got Joel and you this week. And right now it's projected you 110 and Joel 89.9. Who's he got on by?
Yeah.
He's got Judy, Prescott, and Hunt on by, and you have CD, Saquon, Najee, Debo, and Dalton Schultz on by. So I'll let you kind of take this over since it's your matchup.
Yeah, I mean, there's not much to say. I'm in the middle of a apocalypse and still projected to score 110, average 117. I wake up in the morning, I piss excellence. I have a stack of Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown, but really it's more of a vice because they're playing the Texans, and so they might play for a quarter before they blow them out by so much. So I'm probably going to only beat Joel by like 10 this week. So good for him for covering the spread. But better luck next week. And all that talk you said about not wanting to trade Keenan Allen, he once again is not practicing
Yeah, I
after a
just saw
bye
that.
week, and he's in worse condition now. So
So he's projected 0. So if you swap Josh Palmer in there or Lazard, which is like 11 points, Joel's up to 100. So
yeah,
I mean,
right in line. I'll only beat him by 10,
Josh
right on
Palmer.
average. So I mean,
Josh
right
Palmer
now I
with no
currently have
Keenan Allen or Mike Williams.
right now I currently have
Yeah.
Kadarius Toney in there, who's projected 3 points, and so who knows if I actually stick with that or if I switch some things up. Who knows? But we'll just kind of play it by ear. I'm not really worried about winning this week. I have a 2-game advantage for the bye, so I'm more so looking for upside players for the playoffs. So it's fun to have Tony on the team. But
Yeah,
with that in mind, any other? What's the next one you want to jump to?
We are gonna next go to Axman's game against what is it, Pooty?
Yep.
So Axman and Pooty this week. We got buys for Pooty are gonna be it's loading up. Sorry, a little delay here.
He's got only Deshaun Watson, that suspended motherfucker, whereas Axe has Cortland Sutton and George Kittle both on bye this week.
Yep, I see that now. Yeah, so yeah, Axe has Big Bob Tunyon, so obviously he must have done a waiver pickup there, so he'll put him in there. And then let's say Juju, so add 17 to Axes. So Josh is going to be projected around like 98, 99, and Pooty is projected at 105. This is one of those matchups where Pooty needs to win just to kind of keep his ball rolling the right way. Because if he goes to 5-4, and Ross and let's say Ross and Joel both win, and they go to 5-4. Or no, yeah, 5. Yeah, no, you'd be 4-5. Sorry. Then they're only 1 game back of them with 5 weeks left. So, yeah, this is a game Pooty needs to win, and Axman needs to win to shut us up on saying how bad his team is, even though he just scored 138. Yeah, I think Axman found a decent solution with Gino. It's a battle of the terrible quarterback teams. That's what it is.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, we'll see.
Pooty's one team I have.
I was like Jonathan Foreman, he's only Chuba's healthy this week, isn't he? So yeah, he's only protected 9 this week, but yeah, we'll see. I think Axe still has some running back problems too, because right now he has Tyler Algier, and once Cordero comes back for Ross, you think that Cordero will probably get the bulk of the carries again. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think I got to lean Pooty on that one, but I can't say that too much since Axe just went off for 138.
Pooty's one team I have my eye on, despite having a 2-game lead in the division, because this week and next week he's got Josh and Kyler in back-to-back weeks. So yeah, I mean, he easily could turn into a 7-3 team. So I got my eye on him, and I know year after year he's really just trying to focus on making those playoffs. So he's looking pretty solid.
And then the next matchup we've got is Jared and Kyler. So 114 to 113 bye weeks. Jared's got Latavius Murray, doesn't really matter, blah, blah. Kyler doesn't really. Brandon Ayuk, he's out, but he's got Lockett and Higgins in there. So this is a big matchup for Jared. I mean, he's playing for that bye on our side of the bracket. Obviously, it's a big matchup for me too, but my projection's a little better than him. He's only projected to win by 1 right now. So, me having the tiebreaker over Jared currently, we have to play one more time. This is a big one for him to win here. And Kyler to keep it rolling. I mean, he's got Justin Herbert back because he was on a bye last week, I think. So, yeah, I mean, he's got his full stacked up squad to hopefully get a win here. Yeah. So that I can take first over by myself.
I'll be curious to see how it goes. Ross, you're always like to have an opinion about Jared's squad and all that stuff. Have any thoughts on this matchup?
I think it's gonna be a close one for sure. I don't know. I feel like Jared's kind of surging right now in a lot of ways. Although Kyler is too. So, certainly if Kyler plays off the same as last week, I think he's going to take it. But I don't know that he's going to be able to maintain that. I think DJ Moore him having 20-point games is going to be few and far between.
Yeah.
Alvin Kamara going over 30 is going to be the same. So I still think Jared takes it, but I hope it's a nail biter.
Yeah, I think the one potential item that at least catches my eye looking at these initial lineups, I don't know if it's solely because of the fact that he didn't practice today, but right now he does not have Jonathan Taylor in his starting lineup, and he has Christian Kirk in there. I know he's been disappointing, but I'm curious if Jonathan Taylor ends up being active. Does he move back up into the starting squad, or does Jared have the bones to bench the number one pick?
Yeah, it's kind of like the Kyle Pitts thing for me. Like, you just play him out of principle because you're like, he's got to go off at some point. It's like Jonathan Taylor, he's got to go off at some. He hasn't scored a touchdown since week 1, so it's like he's got to get some points in there at some point.
Yeah, I always like trying to deal for Jonathan Taylor. It worked out pretty well for me last year.
Well, did you see that?
I felt bad just taking advantage of that owner again, so I decided to take it easy on him.
Did you see that Jared posted really likely to trade? You can put a player to something, and he put him likely to trade him.
Curb that Najee Harris trade. I was literally having flashbacks of the Jonathan Taylor trade the whole time. I was just thinking I was going to trade him off, and he's going to start blowing 20-pointers every week.
Well, lucky for you, that has not been the case. And unlucky for me, my team would look a lot better if it did. But let's finish up on the last matchup before we wrap it up here. We got Sapper versus Schultes. A very big matchup. Probably the matchup of the week.
Yeah, and here, I mean, right now, Sapp's projected 101, and Schultes is projected Schultes is 101, Sapp's 106. And bye weeks, Schultes doesn't have McCaffrey, and then Sapp doesn't have Zeke, Amari Cooper. I just like Schultes' team. Well, I guess he doesn't have McCaffrey, but Josh Allen, he's playing the Jets. You got to think he's going to go off big there. And we'll see. I guess he has, if Connor's healthy, Antonio Gibson. And then Sapp, Sapp's got Lamar Jackson on Thursday. Is that Thursday night? No, they just played Thursday. Against New Orleans. And then we'll just see how Sapp's running backs do. I think that's his big question here. He's got Tyreek Hill against Chicago, so you think he should score a ton of points, which is bad script for David Montgomery then. But I don't know. I don't know who I want to win this one. It would be funny to see Sapp in the Sacco playoffs, but I think I want Sapp to win because I'm a little more afraid of Schultes' team. So I want Schultes to get as close to that Sacco as he can so that I don't have to worry about him in the playoffs at all.
My motives are solely to try and get me the bye. Even with a 3-game lead on Schultes, I always cheer for people going against my division. So last week I traded you the Patriots defense solely because I knew you were playing Pooty and they had a good matchup. So I cheer against my division mates as much as I can. But I think the answer on who's going to win this is going to be pretty cut and dry. I think it's going to be solely, does Gabe Davis have one of the days where he goes off with Josh Allen, or does he have a dud game like last week? So I think Gabe Davis scores a touchdown. I think Schultes wins. If he doesn't, I'm going to give the edge to Sapp. But we'll see. It'll be very interesting to see how it goes. And this is a big matchup. Roscoe, you got any last thoughts on here before we get out of here?
No, I think I would say the same thing. It's going to be the Josh Allen, Gabe Davis combo that is going to be a big difference maker. And if Antonio Gibson continues to get the touches as well.
Well, yeah, they're both starting Washington running backs. I didn't even see that.
Mm-hmm.
Sapp's got Brian Robinson, and then Schultes has Antonio Gibson. So that's going to be another factor. If Antonio Gibson gets the bulk of the carries, edge Schultes. But if they decide to go back to Robinson, then edge Sapp maybe. But
I know if I were Sapp, I don't know.
You don't see that often.
I would take.
Is that a Monday night game? Because that would be great.
If I were Sapp, I would take a quick look at Brian Robinson and curious if you would start him against Minnesota, where do you potentially go the route of what Ross talks about doing, and does he start Khalil Herbert and David Montgomery together? So I'll be curious if he goes that route or starts CEH. So it'll be curious to see what Sapp does with his running backs. He doesn't have a true number one. He has a whole bunch of number twos, and it's really just roulette on which one he's going to be going with.
Yeah, and if one of them goes off, Sapp's a great team. So
yeah, but he is on a 3-game losing streak. He is known to make the Sacco playoffs. So Whoever he
Start
ends up
hot and
starting,
bad.
make sure you just bet against him in your daily DraftKings over-unders and all that fun stuff. So that'll be free cash in your pocket. But with that in mind, boys, I think we're just about wrapped up. Any last words, Roscoe, you want to give the people before we send you off, my man?
Nope. Good luck, everybody. Be nice to my team. Ongoing. It's been a rough year so far. We've already moved on to NBA gambling. I can't take any more football.
Well, worst of luck to you, Ross, this week. I hope I can beat you. And let's go sap so that I don't have to see shorts.
And to the most awkward outro we're ever going to have. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. Roscoe, Beltino, thanks a lot for jumping on, boys. And we will see you all probably in 2 weeks. This is a bi-weekly thing now, boys. So just deal with it. We got lives to deal with.
Yep. So, all right. See you, boys.
Later.